Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and unravel a high-stakes corporate drama. We are looking at the absolutely fascinating case of Edwin Atienza versus TKC Heavy Industries. This story literally has it all. We're talking massive government contracts, wild accusations of millions of pesos going missing, and a digital paper trail that ultimately decided the winner in the Philippine Supreme Court. If you've ever wondered just how much power a simple, everyday text message holds in a court of law, well, you are definitely in for a treat today. So here's the setup. We're faced with a classic he said, she said scenario. On one side, a top-performing sales agent. On the other, the company president. Toss in some missing signatures and a fierce battle over massive government equipment deals, and you've got a real mess. In corporate disputes like this, the truth almost always hides in the minutia. It's in the timelines, the receipts, those quick daily text messages that people just assume will never see the inside of a courtroom. As we go through this, we're going to see exactly how the highest court in the land cuts through all the noise to figure out who is actually telling the truth. Section 1, the million peso conflict. Let's look at exactly where things broke down between our star salesman, Edwin Atienza, and TKC Heavy Industries. Look at the stark contrast between these two narratives. It's like they're living in two different realities. When communication totally broke down, Atienza went straight to the labor authorities. His claim? He was stiffed on his wages, his reimbursements, and some massive commissions for deals he secured in Quezon City, Caloocan, and Surigao del Sur. But wow, TKC fired back with a massive counterattack. They claimed Atienza wasn't owed a single peso because he went AWOL, literally abandoned his job in mid-January 2013. Oh, and for good measure, they alleged he vanished with an unexplained 7 million peso cash advance. I mean, you really don't get a conflict much sharper than that, do you? Moving on to Section 2, the resignation timeline dispute. So the million-dollar question we have to answer first is, when exactly did he resign? Well, the chronological paper trail completely contradicts TKC's claim that Atienza just up and abandoned his job in mid-January. Just look at the flow of events here. Yes, okay, in December 2012, Atienza did state his intention to resign, but he specifically said that would be after he finished his pending deals. TKC claimed he stopped showing up on January 15th, but the digital footprints show Atienza still heavily coordinating these deals well into February. And the real kicker? TKC's very own HR department sent him an official notice in mid-April. Let's look at the actual receipts. For instance, this text message from TKC staff asking Atienza for help with the Caloocan deal, weeks after his supposed disappearance. A TKC staffer named Shari texted Atienza, who went by the nickname Win, asking him for a BIR registration document for Caloocan so they could release an excavator. Now, think about that. If Atienza had truly gone rogue and abandoned his post in mid-January, why on earth is the company's own staff casually texting him on February 4th asking for help with official government documents? It just doesn't add up. The crucial point here is that Atienza was actively providing text updates on the Quezon City mayor's signature in early February. This basically proves he was still rendering services. On February 7th, Atienza actually texted back, telling Chari to inform Sir Boy, which was their nickname for the president, Leontio, that the Quezon City deal was moving forward and that the mayor had signed the bank charges and letter of credit. This is direct, undeniable evidence that Atienza was still acting as an agent for the company. As the Supreme Court rightly noted, you just don't coordinate multi-million peso letters of credit for a company you've already abandoned. Furthermore, we have TKC's own HR notice from April demanding he face an investigation. This definitively proves the company still exercised disciplinary jurisdiction over him way past January. I mean, just think about the logic here for a second. If TKC genuinely believed Atienza quit and ran off with 7 million pesos back in mid-January, why are they sending him a standard HR notice in April asking him to explain his excessive absences and insubordination? You simply do not discipline someone who isn't your employee anymore. The court found this to be a glaring, almost absurd inconsistency in TKC's story. Section 3. The unpaid commissions dispute. So, with the timeline sorted, who actually gets the payout for these massive deals? Because there was no explicit employment contract detailing exact commission splits, the court creatively applied the Civil Code's concept of joint agency to this labor dispute. This is a really fascinating legal maneuver. See, TKC's files simply noted that Atienza gets a 3% commission, but they didn't lay out any rules for what happens when multiple agents work on the same deal or when a deal wraps up after an agent leaves. So the Supreme Court turned to the law of agency. Under this law, if two agents work together on a deal with the company's knowledge, they are presumed to be joint agents. And guess what? That means they share the compensation equally, 50-50. Let's look at the fate of the three major deals and how the exact date of his resignation impacted his payouts. For Quezon City, the deal dragged on until July, long after Atienza left in February. The legal rule is no work, no pay. So unfortunately for him, he got zero for that one. For Caloocan, the equipment was delivered in early March, just days after he officially left. Since his efforts were clearly instrumental in getting it done, the court used the equitable commission doctrine to award him a flat 100,000 pesos. But Surigao del Sur? That is where it gets huge. Atienza co-worked this deal with another agent, Virgilio Quijada. Even though Quijada was technically assigned to that territory, the evidence showed Atienza helped close the deal with TKC's full knowledge. Therefore, they were officially joint agents. Now for Section 4, the Phantom 7 million. All right, let's talk about that massive, sensational cash advance allegation. There were some absolutely glaring red flags on the cash advance vouchers that made the company's allegations look highly suspicious and, quite frankly, unproven. The Supreme Court looked at this evidence and essentially tore it apart piece by piece. First off, the 7 million peso check wasn't even drawn from a TKC corporate account. It came from the personal bank account of a TKC employee. Second, a cash advance of that sheer magnitude miraculously lacked the authorizing signature of the company president, Leon Tio. Third, the check was made payable to a third party named Ramil Bautista, not Atienza. And finally, the receiving signature on the voucher didn't have a printed name under it, and it didn't even match Atienza's real signature on his official documents. Unsurprisingly, the court threw this claim entirely out the window. Section 5, the final Supreme Court verdict. So after untangling all this, how did the court finally calculate the score? The court awarded Atienza his unpaid wages for the exact months he could prove he worked, plus an equitable fee for Caloocan, a massive joint commission for Surigao, and on top of that, his legal fees. Because Atienza proved through his text messages that he was working through February, he got his monthly salary and allowances for January and February. He also secured the flat 100,000 for the Caloocan deal. But the crown jewel, that's the Surigao project. The province of Surigao del Sur paid over 67 million pesos for the equipment. The total 3% commission on a deal that size was over 2 million pesos. And since the court ruled Atienza and his colleague were joint agents, TKC couldn't just pay the colleague and wash their hands of it. They owed Atienza exactly half. Look at this final tally. Just for his half of the Surigao del Sur deal alone, TKC owed Atienza over 1 million Philippine pesos. And it doesn't stop there. TKC also had to pay 10% of the total awards in attorney's fees, with an additional 6% legal interest annually until it was fully paid. It is a massive vindication for an employee who relied purely on his personal documentation and correspondence to prove his ongoing value to the company. The crucial point to take away from this explainer is that in the eyes of the law, clear digital records, text messages, and proper documentation will always overpower verbal claims. TKC really tried to use the sheer weight of a 7 million peso accusation and their authority as the employer to steamroll Atienza. But the Supreme Court? They didn't care about the titles of the people talking. They looked at the timestamps on the SMS messages. They looked at the missing signatures on those highly dubious check vouchers. When it comes down to it, the objective paper trail is king. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought about the safety of your own agreements. Are you relying on casual verbal promises for your commissions? Do you delete your work correspondence the moment a project ends? As we've seen today, a multi-million peso legal battle can literally hinge on a few saved text messages and an unsigned check voucher. The line between walking away with nothing and winning a million peso Supreme Court victory might just be sitting right there in your phone's outbox. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you look at your own professional paper trail in a whole new light.